In this section, we're going to be discussing some of the different types of betrayal trauma. We've touched on some of them before, but I'd like to talk about a few more and just review the ones we've discussed. So the first type is reality fragmentation trauma. And that is that the reality that the partner had about themselves, about their partner, and about their life is now shattered. And it's broken into all these fragments, and they don't know what the truth is, and they don't know how to put it back together. And as we talked about, a couple, it becomes one organism. And so that organism regulates itself. That partner of yours helps you regulate your emotional stability and sense of place in the world. And now that's gone. In fact, it's not that it's gone, but that person who, as I've said before, was the safest person in the world is now the most dangerous person in the world. And at the same time, while I'm scared of you, I also need you to help me heal. Additionally, their attachment object is gone. And if they've had any earlier attachment wounds, this wound often reopens those wounds as well. And so one of the types of trauma is also called self-trust trauma, meaning not just I can't trust my partner, I don't know who they are, but I don't trust myself. How did I not see this? How do I know that it won't happen again? How can I ever trust someone else or trust myself again? One of the greatest wounds to the partner that we talked about earlier in their ability to have that mind-gut connection is to move through the world and trust what their body's telling them. That's been eradicated. They don't trust their ability to judge situations anymore because they missed this one. They missed the big one. And so one type of trauma is self-trust trauma, the loss of the ability to be able to trust one's own body and giving them information that they need, and also to be able to, the loss of one's ability to be able to trust their mind to catch when there's danger around them. Sexual trauma is another type of trauma that happens as a result of sexual betrayal. And some of the ways that this manifests is the avoidance of sex. Some betrayed partners don't want to be sexual with their partner right now because they're feeling, understandably so hurt and disillusioned about the relationship, angry, rejected. You chose someone else over me, so they avoid sex. You'll see also that many couples will come in and be surprised that they're having the best sex that they've had in years after discovery. And the reason for that is because even though there's all this pain, it's very likely that for many years they've kind of been parallel living, these two people. They run the house together, they deal with the kids together, they talk about their day, they share in things, they get into bed at night, talk for a few minutes, pass out. But they're not really sharing a lot vulnerably. And when a discovery happens, it rips all that out. And there's a lot of pain and anger and rage like we've talked about. And it forces them to interact a lot more, which creates this connection as well. And so a lot of times couples will have more sex than they've had before, hotter sex than they've had before discovery. And they come in confused by it. And it's important to normalize it for them. But it's also really important as a therapist to check on the betrayed partner to make sure they're not having sex out of fear in order to keep their partner on the right track. If they've learned that their partner wants more sex or is having sex with more people and they're feeling insecure about themselves, it's a natural reaction for some partners to try to use sex as a way to keep their spouse or their partner connected to them. And you want to check in with them about that because that's really harmful. Having sex out of fear is not a good thing at any time. There's also a result of the sexual trauma is a high activation from any sexual content in the media. We mentioned earlier all the sexual content on television about, especially about betrayal, infidelity, dishonesty, affairs. They're going to be very activated by that. it's going to be very difficult for them to find a respite from all of that stuff. And so helping them through that, teaching them that they don't have to watch things that are harmful to them. One of my couples who've gone through years and years of therapy because they were in therapy around different discoveries for over 10 years and still found out new discoveries. And so now for the past few years, there's been honesty and transparency. And the betrayed partner shared with me that she likes watching things like the Tiger Woods documentary, which talk about his infidelities. And she likes watching shows where there is betrayal trauma. And she's like, I don't know what's wrong with me. I just like it. And it's because it keeps her nervous system on point. It keeps her nervous system on alert to keep her safe. And because she's been in this state for, I think, 12 years now, her nervous system has gotten used to being at hypervigilant and to being at this high level. And so it feels familiar, and familiar we know feels good, to watch things that are activating. And so it's important also to check in with your partners as you're working with them, that they're not harming themselves by watching things to activate themselves. It's kind of like not being able to look at the train wreck or the car accident when you go by. It's captivating, it pulls them in. That's what it often feels like to them. But explain to them that it keeps them in a state of hyper arousal and hypervigilance can help them to start make different choices about what they're going to watch in the media. Many partners have intrusive thoughts during sex. Renegotiating sex life can be a very painful thing. If your partner has chosen other people and now they're with you, you're going to feel not enough. So that's going to be an intrusive thought. One couple that I saw, the husband was your typical straight-laced guy in the suburbs of New York City, but his secret sexual life was he would hire porn stars to travel with him on business trips and have crazy sex with them. So his wife is comparing herself to these porn stars who are surgically enhanced, who are being paid to act in certain ways that she doesn't. And she can never really compare, and she always feels insignificant. These thoughts come up during sex. And so it's really important to hold their hands when they're ready, not before, to re-engage in sex and to understand that they're going to be having these intrusive thoughts and helping the partner who's done the betrayal go slow, be patient, be loving and thoughtful in a sexual way, and tender with their partner who's going to have intrusive thoughts. And I'm just going to say that if it's a man who did the betrayal, he's going to have to overcome that handicap that many men face, that if they don't get their way sexually, they throw a temper tantrum. I mean, that's not really acceptable anywhere, even in high school, but many adult men still behave that way. They get pouty and angry and feel rejected if their spouse doesn't want to be sexual with them. And it really requires them growing up and maturing in a different way to relate to their spouse around sex and handle rejection when it comes up. There's a lot of somaticized reactions that the partner's body takes from all of this dysregulation, disorientation, and pain. And it can be in the form of impacting the sexual life, so that maybe their vagina is not going to lubricate or it's going to clamp tight, literally as a protection. It can be in the way that they get nauseous during sex. They have inflammation. They can have inflammation throughout their body or autoimmune issues. There are many different somaticized illnesses and reactions that their bodies have. Because again, if you think about them constantly being in a state of hyperarousal, hypervigilance, that's draining. It takes a toll on their body. The levels of cortisol, the levels of adrenaline get depleted, and that has an impact on their body. And finally, often during sex, rage or even the desire to or attempt to be violent with the partner can come out, because that's when so many memories just burst through the door and come out and are present. And sex is such a vulnerable thing in so many ways. So in the busyness of life, you can kind of minimize or forget some of the pain maybe, but in sex, it's really hard to. And sometimes all of those feelings, especially in the form of the pain and the hurt and the rage, come out in sex. And it's important to make them aware of that too. The following is something that a client of mine wrote to share for this training about her sexual trauma from her husband's betrayal. And she writes, "This part of betrayal makes my insides heated every time I think about it more than other parts. I did not know that you can be physically, sexually abused without being touched. I went through a whole bunch of infections, irritations, and unexplained strange rashes on my body the last few years. I sat at the gyno and felt like a hypochondriac or convinced that I have developed breast cancer. I was presenting with some sort of symptom, but I did not have the information to match the symptom. I blame my diet, my hygiene habits, my birth control, vitamin intake, on the weird different infections I kept getting. It did not make sense why I was continuously testing for BV and UTIs in all this time. Not once did I ever request a sexually transmitted infection test, or did any doctor suggest it. Why would I? I was a young mother and was not sexual with anyone else other than my husband." Additionally, body image trauma is part of the impact of betrayal trauma as well. There's pressures on men and women on how we look. Few are the people who are satisfied with their body image and have a healthy body image. We all have insecurities about the way our bodies look. When our partner then chooses someone else, or many someone else's, or the images of someone else's, over choosing us, we can't help but personalize that maybe our bodies don't cut it anymore. Additionally, if you have a partner whose secret sexual life involved extensive pornography usage or multiple relationships or multiple sex workers, one person can never compare with all those people. It's impossible. And so I'm always going to come out deficient. There's also a lot of cultural messaging, assigning blame or even justifying one partner to seek sex elsewhere if their partner's body isn't attractive. Oh, she put on a few pounds. Oh, he's got that belly and he's going bald. It's not acceptable, but it is acceptable, wink, wink, and understandable, maybe that's the better way to say it, when someone seeks sex elsewhere because their partner isn't as attractive as they once were. And so there's messaging that we take in and that betrayed partners take in too, and then they blame themselves because of their body if their partner sucks elsewhere. We also use body image as a way to avoid intimacy. And so if a person isn't feeling good about their body, they may not be as sexually intimate as frequent. And that becomes a block in itself. Another result of body image trauma is betrayed partners having cosmetic surgery. I've had several betrayed partners who've had breast enhancements, facial plastic surgery, other parts of their bodies done differently. They thought that if they could have all these surgeries to look better, to look younger, to look more sexy, then their partner would be still interested in them. It would be less likely that their partner would keep looking elsewhere for sex. And it's really, really painful to see the amount of physical pain that some partners have gone through in having different types of cosmetic surgery because of the insecurity about their bodies that this betrayal trauma has created. Gender trauma is another type of the trauma that a betrayed partner has. Barbara Reisman, who's a professor at the University of Illinois, says that gender matters not just as identity or stereotypes, but also it's at the core of how our social world is organized. And what that's telling us is that, yes, gender is an identity. Who we are as a woman, who we are as a man, tells us so much about how we make our way through the world. But it's also how we see the world. It's how the world sees us. And so when my partner is choosing other men or other women to be with over me, it feels that I as a man or I as a woman aren't a good enough man or a good enough woman, and that it wounds us in the essence of who we are with our gender. Family and community trauma is where the family or the community judges or blames the betrayed partner for what their spouse has done. That they blame, let's say the woman often is the case, for what the man has done. If you were more this, if you could keep your man, if you were more sexy, if you were more understanding. And family members, I've had multiple cases where family members blame a daughter, a sister, a son, because they weren't able to keep their partner interested in them sexually. There also, family trauma blames the betrayed partner if they don't keep it secret. If they share it with other people, or if they don't keep it a secret in the community, then the family or the community gets upset and blames the betrayed partner for bringing shame on the family. This can be very common either in tight communities, religious communities, communities that are first generation or immigrants from other countries where they're bringing ideas of family honor from other cultures into their family life. And so they end up blaming the betrayed partner for not only letting it happen, but also for telling people about it. They can have a grief over the loss of friendships or support, because just like when there's a divorce, often people avoid the divorced couple because they don't know how to act, or it makes them look at their own relationship, or people sometimes think that divorce is contagious. The same thing when there's sexual betrayal in a marriage or a relationship, people often don't know how to act. They don't want to take sides. They don't want to deal with their own feelings of insecurity about maybe betrayal in their own lives somewhere else. So they avoid those people. So part of the trauma is that the betrayed partner loses important community friendships or supports, and again, ends up more and more isolated. And as we said also earlier, they end up in isolation because if they want to try to make the relationship work and they share the information, they're scared they're going to damage the relationship between their own family and their partner, or between their kids and their partner, or people's opinion of them in the community. So they end up not telling anybody, but carrying the shame and carrying their spouse's shame with them. One couple I know that lives in a very religious community in New York, the woman was scared, didn't want to tell anybody. She didn't want anybody at the synagogue to know. She didn't want anybody of her friends. She goes, I don't trust one of my friends. They all gossip about other people. I don't want to be the source of gossip. And she's left without support, and she's left in isolation. So it's really hard being cut off from the community. The second to last type of trauma that we're going to talk about in this section is professional, therapeutic professional trauma, or clergy trauma. As we mentioned in our first introduction to the evolution of how betrayal trauma is treated, the co-addict model based on codependency, which assigns some level of personal responsibility to the partner of someone with a secret sexual life, is traumatic for many people. After having discovered that someone's been cheating on you and you had no idea, and now you're being told that you have to look at yourself and your role in that, it's offensive and painful. I can't tell you the amount of times that couples have come into our offices and said that they've sat with a therapist who said, well, it takes two. There's two people in every relationship. Or you wouldn't have been attracted to someone like this if you were more healthy. Or there's issues on both sides here. Or try to be more sexually pleasing. All these things have been said by therapists to couples, and the betrayed partner feels re-traumatized and not supported. Additionally, religious institutions or clergy may have values or instructions to telling the betrayed partner that it's their duty to make the marriage work, to submit or obey, or that divorce is not an option. One man shared with me that when he shared with his rabbi that he didn't want to stay with his wife who had been cheating on him systematically, the rabbi said to him, "You don't have to love her, just be roommates." A colleague of mine, who's now a therapist, shared the following with me about her experience in her religious community. She said, "My family cut me off because they didn't believe in divorce for any reason, even when I discovered that my husband had had a secret sexual life apart from me. When I knew I needed to leave, I had been booked for 2 years in the future at speaking at different churches, and that all fell apart because even though I was told that I had biblical grounds for divorce, these faith communities only wanted to hear about stories that they felt were good testimonies. What they missed was a good testimony that you can be crucified in the pain of betrayal, die of the pain and resurrect yourself into a new glorious life." Another colleague who discovered that their partner had been having a secret sexual relationship said, "My church didn't know what to do with me, so they ignored me."